Welcome to the Q. My name is Nurse Bug. I'm your friendly neighborhood nurse surveyor.
And hi, I'm Tina Webster. I'm so glad you joined us.
Hey, I'm John Pouliot, and I'm your friendly neighborhood consultant pharmacist.
This week, we're going to have Bryan Rife in the house. He's the CEO of Sparkle Success, and he has over 27 years of healthcare experience. He holds a life coach certification through the Academy of Modern Applied Psychology, and he's nationally certified as an activity director with a specialization in education through the National Certification Council of Activity Professionals. He's also a licensed Montessori home engagement certification instructor through the National Certification Council for Activity Professionals as well. And he previously served on boards of the NCCAP in Washington, D.C. and the Coalition of Activity Professionals in North Carolina. He's presented at multitudes of healthcare conferences and workshops as a keynote speaker, and currently he's a life coach and consultant and assists several organizations with various projects, teaching person-centered care and life-enriching activity programs to enhance the physical, cognitive, and psychosocial well-being of our elderly adults. So go ahead and tell us about Sparkle Success.
Well, thank you all for having me. First of all, I love being able to join things like this and provide a little more insight into the world of activities. Sparkle Success came about maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I started speaking at some conferences going around the country here. And my very first session was called Unleashing Your Inner Sparkle. And it was for, the professional that was kind of down and out, beating themselves up, feel like they're the low man on the totem pole, especially in the world of activities where it's not really recognized as it should be. And we had a lot of professionals that started just leaving the field, especially after COVID happened. We saw a mass exodus of professionals. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm full of rainbow, sunshine, glitter, and unicorns, and it just made sense for me to come up with Sparkle Success as my company name. And I have my spouse and my very best friend. They're part of my team, and we offer support to communities that are struggling or that just need a pep talk with their activity programming. We go in or do it virtually and help them out. So that's what Sparkle Success is, how it came about. And I love it. I love everything about what we do and what we can provide. And the activity profession is like the cream of the crop for me. I love it. I think it's the number one profession. Nobody ever rolls out of the bed and says, hey, I want to be an activity professional. And I think if they would choose to say that when they roll out of bed for their first day of adulthood and say, I want to be an activity director, the world would be a better place.
I agree.
You're right. So some of the articles that I found, they all said different things, but I combined all of them kind of because some of them said the same. They talked about music, whether it be classical, instrumental, karaoke, jukebox, whatever it might be. It lowers stress and agitation in those with memory care issues because music memory remains even as verbal and mental abilities decline. Karaoke, hymns, holiday carols, simple percussion like maracas, so they can shake them around, or tambourines, whatever it might be. Era songs from when they were younger, the popular ones. If you don't have a karaoke machine, pretend microphone all the way. Doesn't matter. Hairbrush.
Yes. They have inflatable ones these days you can buy online, so they can serve dual purposes. You can use those to whack a balloon too. Yes, music is very important for people that have dementia. There's a documentary called Alive Inside, and it is just a beautiful depiction of what music can really do for an individual, especially ones that have severe cognitive deficits, have Alzheimer's, dementia. Music is powerful. It's a universal language, and somebody that has Alzheimer's, dementia, they may not remember their name or faces, but you start singing Amazing Grace, or if you're happy in your note, clap your hands. Some of those familiar songs, they'll start tapping their foot. You maybe hold their hand and you can feel them squeeze your hand when you're starting to sing it, or even watch their facial expressions or their mouth. They may try to mumble some of the words or even sing the words. I've noticed that in my career that it's not something that they forget. No matter where they are at in the spectrum of Alzheimer's, dementia, music is still there. It still brings them back to life.
I've seen it firsthand as a surveyor, way back in the day when I was able to observe that sort of thing. It brings joy to their faces, and you know that they correlate it with something that's making them happy, and that's all that matters.
And another thing I was going to say too is, we talked about the genres of music and things like that, but another important thing to remember is that you have to know the culture, their culture, because it's different to educate yourself on, what the Asian culture is and what their music is versus what we have here in America. Is totally different. We need to make sure that we're educated about each individual and where they come from, and make sure that we're providing music that caters to their culture.
Individualize it to your memory care unit or residents in general. Yep, absolutely. The next thing they talked about was videos and stimulating therapy and memory prop boxes. So familiar faces, shapes, colors, sound engage the brain. Familiar locations are calming for them. So home videos, movies, travel destinations, sometimes even live cams like the VRs. You can take them to zoos, aquariums, museums, wildlife places around the world and take tours of the Paris Art Gallery. And it's something that if you have a few of those headsets, a lot of people can do it once. If not, maybe one at a time. However it works for you guys. Props can be binoculars, pamphlets of these different museums, aquariums. They talked about feathers for touching, tactile. And then it also talked about how it reduces aggression and improves interactions overall, these sort of things. Sensory boxes, boards, games that inspire friendly competition that they can understand, matching tiles, silly facts from, that era, charades. It's a combo of physical and mental stimulation, basically, like tossing colored bags into baskets, dancing to different sounds, workbooks, puzzles, matching games, mazes, simple math. Sometimes it's fun for them, depending on what their profession was. And then it gave a few games. So shoots and ladders, go fish, dominoes, bingo, 20 questions, Uno, checkers, Yahtzee, solitaire. And then it also said, if you want to teach them how to tie certain knots, which I was a Girl Scout. I don't know if any of you guys were in that, but we learned different knots. So I would definitely love something like that. And there's hundreds of them. So, and then tying them can be just as satisfying as tying them up. So it talks about jokes. There was a 3-year study that there's a 20% reduction in anxiety and depression with residents with dementia when you tell a joke, which I thought was absolutely so fun. I love telling jokes. Basically, items centered around their life, history, and interests. It also included the photo albums, maybe a kitchen apron or ornament, painting that they love, maybe an old wedding dress if they brought that with them to the facility, a uniform, any sort of clothing, sounds, voices. It talked about familiar scents would be like a wooden spoon that they had, the smell of that wood, that bamboo wood sometimes, sandpaper for a carpenter, scrapbooks for favorite memories, and just inspiring that meaningful conversation, just in general.
Right. All those things are great because stimulating oneself mentally, especially, is very good. It's funny how you talked about like a wedding dress and the old spoon, things like that. I have my mother's cast iron skillet, and I remember I used to take, when I worked in the memory care unit, I would take some things like that. But her cast iron skillet, I would say that if I had Alzheimer's dementia today and somebody pulled out and brought that cast iron skillet to me, it would, somewhere I would have to remember that because it's a very strong memory of her cooking homemade fudge in a cast iron skillet. I could care less about the finished product. What I enjoyed most was she would leave the cast iron skillet on the stove, and after she was finished getting the fudge out, I call it the crumbs would stay in the thing around the edge. And I would take a spoon, and when she wasn't around, and was scraping it. Love that. And, her cooking cornbread in a cast iron skillet. I remember her taking it out, putting like a whole stick of butter on top of it. So, things like that is very important to them, especially that things that they're familiar with, to have and to hold, touch, and feel. Also, going back to the video, you mentioned the headset, the Oculus system is a very good resource product to have that you can utilize. And there is a good friend of mine that I met about 2 years ago after doing a podcast, something similar to this. He reached out to me. His name is Rob. He's here in North Carolina. But he has a nonprofit called Thrive Pavilion. And it's no cost, it's free. And if you have the Oculus headset, you go to Thrive Pavilion, and it's a community of people from all over the country, whether they're in a community, a nursing home, assisted living, or they're at home, and they could partake in going on trips together, seeing Paris, walking the streets of Paris, doing pottery. They have a pottery class. They play bingo. There's Tai Chi. Anything you can possibly think of is in Thrive Pavilion. And one of the things that I love most is that Rob and his team are taking individuals who have some form of dementia early on stage, basically, and they're capturing stories, memories, and then his team are recreating these memories in Thrive Pavilion, and they have the individual telling the story. So you can go into Thrive Pavilion and you go into this room and push a button on the wall, and you hear, say, Tina telling the story, and then you step down into the world or into the story that she's telling.
So cool.
That is so.
It's powerful, right? And I remember going into the pavilion for the first time and looking at this and thinking, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. And to be able to hear this individual telling, the recollection of this specific memory that will be there forever. It's captured now and it's rebuilt, that they can continue to go to as they go through the progression of the disease with dementia. And then also their families can go there and relive those moments too. I wanted to make sure I shared that because it's a great resource. It's Thrive Pavilion.
Yeah, it keeps their neural pathways firing. And we know that helps keep them intact. And that kind of moves us into the next. It talks about art therapy. So painting, drawing, crafts that allow freedom of expression, and it exercises their fine motor skills. Magazines, pics, you can create collages, slideshows of paintings and art museum tours, clay to feel and mold. And then there was one fun one that was pasta threading. You can use colorful yarn and dry pasta and then make a needle. They called it a needle, but you wrap masking tape around the end of a piece of yarn, and that helps them kind of, put it through the pasta. And they could make creative patterns. That one I thought was really interesting. It also talked about pet therapy, and we've had a podcast on this already, but it decreases loneliness, increases positivity, lowers blood pressure, encourages activity, and it can improve eating habits as well. Some facilities have like those colorful fish tanks, and they'll sit there and stare at those all day. They love it. They also talked about realistic robotic pets, take away that having to feed and water and take out. It takes away some of that, but gives them all the good emotional whatnot that those can give. And then just watching pets play outdoors in common areas. If there's a dog park near the facility, or maybe taking them to a dog park, just watching animals makes you happy. We know it'd be beneficial.
But going back to like arts and crafts, especially art and crafts, a very important thing to know and to always remember is that there's no right or wrong way to do it. I think sometimes we get hung up on the fact that it has to be done a certain way. And another thing that I encourage anybody that listens to this is don't let them do artwork and shove it in a drawer when they're finished. Be displaying it, hang it up, have an art show, whatever the case may be, but just make sure that we are displaying it in an area where that they can see it as well, not out of sight, out of mind, but definitely we don't want to be letting them finish it and putting it in a drawer or the garbage can.
Right. So the next one was taste and scent. It said engage all 5 of their senses, especially smell. Christmas tree scent, grass, fresh cut grass, one of my favorites. Scents and flavors elicit memory quicker than sights and sounds. So baking, essential oil or wax melts, brewed coffee, cookies, and of course it stimulates appetite too. But those scents bring back all those good memories. The next was tactile stimulation. So touch increases trust, relaxation, and reduces aggression, and even tremors and picking. So the ones that are tremoring and picking, it can help with that. having a stuffed bear, wooden spoon, folding clothes with different fabric types, velvet, fur, silk, a beaded dress, or cufflinks, and knitting. It talks about balloon whack for groups, which I thought was a fun one. It's played with a group or individual, and the goal is to keep the balloon in the air by slapping it. And it improves balance, strength, cardio, reflexes. But you could do it with pool noodles, however you want to do it. Make it your own, whatever your residents are open to.
There's inflatable microphones.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So the Snoozellen rooms, okay? So sensory stimulants, tactile surfaces, all the way to calming sounds and lights. It's a therapeutic, recreational that's beneficial to those with sensory, cognitive, and physical disabilities. And it was developed to satisfy perceptual needs with those with severe learning, sensory, other disabilities. But I know you know about these, Bryan. So could you tell me a little bit about these rooms?
Sure. So the Snozzling rooms, they vary in sizes. I just encourage people, most communities these days have a room. They're never at full capacity. That's the beast of the business. If you are other communities that are that you have a census that is at capacity, great. But if not, find a room, talk to your administrator, and use that room to create your Snozzling. It's got, it's full of lights and sounds. It basically stimulates all of the senses. Things that you can touch, you can look at, you can smell. The product, Snozzling, is trademarked, so they do have their own products that you can purchase. They can be expensive. Activity professional, I like to design on a dime because I watched a lot of those shows on HGTV where you can flip a house. You can find a lot of this stuff like at Walmart, or go on Amazon. Take an old fish tank and just put fish gravel in it, and then underneath it you could put a bubble. They sell them at Walmart, the bubble ones. Just stick underneath it, creates the bubbles, and stick some submersible LED lights that rotate through the different colors. You can find a lot of the different ideas online. Go up on YouTube and research. Temu, if you're a fan of Temu right now, Temu has a plethora of stuff you can utilize to create Snozzling. And typically when you're utilizing it, you don't have a whole bunch of residents that are or clients in the room. You may have one or two. It's kind of quiet. There may be some low playing instrumental music or sounds of water, or wind chimes, or birds, or the ocean crashing on the shore. But it's not Britney Spears or LL Cool J in the room, right? Or
right.
It's instrumental stuff. And it's really good. It's a really good program. If you can take the time and invest and actually build this room, it's really beneficial for people that have dementia.
For sure.
Going back to engaging the five senses, because it's Friday at the end of the week for me, there is a specific order in which you should engage the senses.
Oh.
If you Google that, in what order should you engage the senses, it will tell you the specific order, because it takes the brain time to process certain, if it's smell, it takes the brain a certain time to process. And there's an individual who discovered, like a physician, as to what order the senses should be engaged in when you're introducing these to dementia patients.
Okay. So I actually looked that up while you were talking about it. And it says, it's from a teacher's guide, the 5-sentence pre-K to grade 2. It says you use your eyes to see, your ears to hear, your nose to smell, your tongue to taste, and your skin to feel. Is that the right order, or sound right to you?
It's really interesting to know how long it takes when you see something, how long it takes the brain to process it, or when you smell something, how long it takes. So it is a very specific order in which you should engage the senses.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we will definitely add that in here. I think that's important, especially if that's what you're trying to do with those rooms, and helping with those sensory stimulants. So the last one that I found talks about gardening. So planting, pulling weeds, and this depends on your residents and what they can do physically, but putting dirt in pots you can do in the activity room. That's something simple. Having them hold the water can or fill it. smelling the flowers, feeling the sunlight, smelling the bouquets of fresh flowers that are on their tables. If you guys do that in your facilities, it just brightens the environment. And it talks about how productive memory care activities make residents feel useful. And the approach is called the Montessori method. And it helps residents revive skills and interests, even if physical abilities have deteriorated. And I know, Bryan, this is another area that you know a lot about. So I'd love to hear more.
Yes. Dr. Maria Montessori, she was an amazing individual. And she first started utilizing her methods with children. We've discovered and have started utilizing the same methods with people that we care for. And, making sure that they're in touch with nature is very important. It's one of Dr. Maria Montessori's beliefs is that they should be in touch with nature. Sometimes I get a little emotional, so I get a little choked up every now and then. Right after COVID, we came out of COVID. On social media, there was an activity professional that had posted a black and white image of an elderly man laying in the grass, and his wheelchair was sitting beside him. And she had asked the residents what was something that they wanted to do as soon as COVID they could get out. And he said, I just want to go out and feel the grass and the ground on my skin. How many of us really take our loved ones and lay them out in the grass and on the ground? But as kids, we used to lay on the grass and roll around in the dirt, everything else. We've lost that as we've come into adulthood. But that was so important to that man, just to feel the grass. He said to feel the warm earth on his skin and the grass on his face and on his body, the sunlight, hitting him. And I thought that was, it kind of ties into Dr. Maria Montessori and what she believed was that we need to be in touch with their environment, getting them in nature, letting them do gardening, play around in the dirt, get a little messy. It's okay to do those things. Also, making them feel like that they have a purpose and giving them a purpose. We should not be doing things that they can do. And we go in and we give them a bath, and here we go, start washing their face. Let them wash their face. Let them fold laundry or sweep or pour the juice in a cup. We've taken so much away from them. And her belief was to, let them do. She also believed that whenever you are trying to get an individual to do a task, you don't speak, you show. They look and they watch and they observe, which is very important. Just making sure that they feel like they have a purpose. The best thing that you can do for somebody that has dementia is just to sit down and look at them, hold their hand, look at them eye to eye, and let them know that you see them. They're still human. When I teach this class, I always tell them that until they take their last breath, they're still alive and they have much life to live. On the memory care unit that I used to work for, there was a lady, I don't know why she was back there in a jerry chair. It's not like she was going to escape. But one of the staff members said, you're not going to get her to do anything. She just sits there. She doesn't do anything. And I remember the third trip back there on that unit, I took a bottle of bubbles and I was sitting in a chair beside her, trying to figure out what I could do. Didn't really know nothing about her. Read her assessment, but a lot of the things was very vague. And I started blowing bubbles and I watched every part of her body. And she was tracking the bubbles with her eyes. And then, long story short, I pulled the old hospital-looking blanket up above her knees. She had crossed her ankles, raised her right foot up, and popped a bubble. And that became her thing. And I was like, all right, she's alive, And to a lot of people, there was nothing that she could do. She just sat there with her legs crossed with a blanket and having some contractures watching TV, and there's so much we can do with these people and pull out of them if we give them the opportunity to do it instead of doing for them. That's just a little bit about Montessori. And there's so much stuff you can do with Montessori. And on YouTube, there's a lady, she has a channel called The Purple Alphabet. And she shows you how you can incorporate Montessori activities into your programming. A lot of the stuff you can purchase at the Dollar Tree, which is now get to be $1.07 tree. There's stuff from the Dollar Tree to make things like you were talking about, threading the noodle. That's part of Montessori. counting, sorting, all of those things, tying, using sailors. If you know that they were a sailor, letting them tie a sailor's knot. Those things are very important.
Your story about going out on the grass and being in the sunshine, it reminds me when my kids were little and it would rain, and it was not a cold rain, but more like just a spring, rain. I would take them out in their diapers and sit them in the little puddles and just let them splash. And I would just feel the rain on my face. Like, it was so soothing. And I love that you're keeping that idea alive, because that person who can't speak, who can't move, they still love those things too. They still do.
I had a student that once told me she had a resident on the memory care unit that kept trying to go outside when it was raining. And I was like, well, what did you do? She said, well, I kept trying to redirect her and tell her that we would go when it would stop raining. I'm like, why?
Let her go. Let her go in the rain.
It's just water. As long as it's not freezing or lightning, but why not go out in the rain? Why not just take a group of residents outside in the pouring rain and just laugh? Let them stomp around in a puddle. I used to play in that puddle. There's a picture of me in this gigantic mud puddle in a diaper, playing in an alley behind my grandmother's house, just rolling around in this gigantic mud puddle.
It's some of the best memories.
Unpharmacological things you could do.
Out of the box. I love it.
I love that we've talked so much thus far and we haven't mentioned medications at all. That's great. And that's coming from the pharmacist.
Activities is it's the best thing we can do for somebody. Back in my day, because I'm an old dinosaur, I started in healthcare as a nursing assistant in 1994. And I remember stepping out of the room saying, Matt's trying to bite me, get the Haldol. And the nurse would come down and give him a shot of Haldol. Nowhere ahead of me. But now, knowing what I know, I'm like, shame on me. And I feel bad. No, I think about all these things. Think about putting them in vest restraints in their wheelchair and tying them to the bed and roll belts and all of those things that I was a part of.
That's one of the most important things about the activities that we're talking about. It helps them feel in control when they're out of control. It gives them a creative, practical activity designed to keep a memory alive, improve their sense of independence. Just like you said, that lady who couldn't do anything, she kicked a bubble. That's something. That's something. It gives them confidence, self-esteem, and overall quality of life improvement. But the timing must be right. We do need to talk about that. So sometimes memory care residents are unpredictable. You have to be flexible and provide failure-free activities. Success is the goal no matter what. You're going to pick projects on a resident-by-resident basis because, I put in here, one of the most powerful memes that I've ever seen on Facebook. And there was multiple in this one meme, but it showed a lady looking in a mirror in her nightgown in the nursing home, and she was wearing a nurse's cap. And there was a gentleman looking in the mirror, and he was wearing his uniform. They were someone before they were a nursing home resident. You need to know who that person is to care for them.
With 50 years of experience and experts across all areas of nursing home care, Qsource genuinely understands the needs of your facility. We've always been there alongside you, and we've walked in your shoes. No matter the situation, Qsource is prepared to tackle your challenges, solve your issues, and answer your questions. Let Qsource encourage, educate, and empower you. Contact us at any time at qsource.org. We will always be here to help. And now back to the podcast.
Next, we're going to talk a little bit about how Qsource can help in this area, helping facilities create individualized, resident-centered care plans and activities is one of many of the services that we provide. But we also collaborate with many of the professionals in the building, such as Bryan, too, facility or otherwise, to find the best opportunities and services to ensure that residents in your facility have their needs addressed, especially those residents that are considered challenging, like the ones that have the contractures and can't verbalize what they need. We want to engage those residents in stimulating activities because it allows for better quality of life, because we want to provide the best care.
To me, we get so caught up in the robotics of our jobs that we lose sight of the real reason why we're there. I tell my students all the time, a surveyor, and Lindsay, you're a surveyor, so would you give more grace to an activity professional that is 3 days late on a progress note if you know that they've been spending additional hours with a resident who has behaviors or who is on hospice passing away.
Absolutely.
And I tell them that all the time. You're going to get more grace for doing what you're truly there for.
Yeah. If I'm observing you with your residents and you're missing a few notes and you're making my heart smile with what you're doing, then I'm probably going to give you a lot more grace. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And educating our department managers, our social workers, our dietary, housekeeping, therapy, everybody in our building to know that they're more than what their job description is.
Mm-hmm.
They get rid of their job description. What would they do with the resident? The environmental services or the maintenance man had no job description. What would he do with the resident? We'd find Jonathan was a carpenter, and instead of you going down there fixing the handrail, you would bring Jonathan down there with you with the box of tools and get him to help you with the handrail.
That would be so wonderful.
Giving the person, Tina, who was a registered nurse back in her day, if you knew that, why wouldn't you give her some physician orders to look at if you know that she can still do those things?
Yeah. Keep things out and let her figure out what it is. Yeah. Oh, she'd love that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
We have job descriptions, but sometimes I think there just needs to be a blanket statement in every job description that says, do something with the resident.
Without those residents, those employees there in that facility would not have a job. And the whole point of us wanting to be in the nursing home or work in the industry is because we love our patients, we love our residents, and so we should be, every person that's in the building, they should all take pride and want to be a person that makes a difference in that resident's life.
It shouldn't matter what position you hold. That should be what you work towards every day. Yeah, I agree. 100%. Whenever I would see someone in the facility who would say, well, I'm just this, I don't talk to the residents. Why? Yeah. And then you have the other ones you walk into where they're like, I know every resident's name. I know who to call when I need, So,
no, something about them, what makes the resident, when they're having the behavior, how can you alleviate that behavior without medication?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No offense, Jonathan.
No offense taken. I love it.
But, I just relived horror in my brain from 1994 till I got into activities. And
Hey, Brian, I could totally relate because I was in the air even before that and seeing residents tied in chairs and seeing them tied in the bed. And as a new nurse, it literally made my stomach hurt when I would go to work and I would see that. And you understood that just a lack of education, of understanding of resident rights. You can be passionate, but you have to have compassion. You have to feel love for these residents. You want to have a good quality place for them,
Yeah. And it's all of them, all residents. I think, not just, and I'm getting off track here about dementia, but all residents, whether they're homeless or whether they're addicts, they didn't roll out of bed and say, I want to be homeless. They didn't roll out of bed and say they want to be addicts.
Right.
They didn't roll out of bed and I want to be diagnosed with dementia or cancer or any of those things. So I wish we could get past and just realize that they're human and we all need things. Sometimes it's just sitting down and grabbing one's hand and looking at them in the eye and saying, I see you.
Yeah. They just want to feel love.
Especially those that don't have family that come to visit them often or friends, those were the ones that I kind of gravitated to more than the others. I don't know about you guys, but I gravitate towards everyone. I'm kind of just an open book. I love to talk to anyone, but those that didn't have anyone, that was my biggest thing. And I told a story to the girls earlier today about when I did my clinicals as a new baby CNA. I was pregnant with my daughter, and I had met a resident who his wife had died and his daughter was in a coma. And so he said, I have no one. And I said, well, you have a grandchild on the way. So there's that. Yeah. I took care of him for that 8 weeks of classes that I had way back in the day. And then when I brought my daughter 3 months later, she was 2 weeks old. It was 3 months later, I found that he had died. And I was heartbroken because I was that thing for him. I gave him hope. When he saw me in the morning, he lit up. So you make a difference in these people's lives.
Healthcare professionals, the true healthcare professionals, I say that because there are some that's just there for a paycheck, unfortunately. It takes a very special person to do what we do, to provide care and to be unbiased and to look beyond the diagnosis and label and just know that they're humans and they have needs and wants and desires just like we do.
Well, then I'm going to go into the teaser for next week, guys. So next week, we're going to be talking about building blocks for good staff, administrators, DONs, nurses, and CNAs. I want to thank everyone for joining us for the Q's Weekly podcast for all your nursing home needs and topics. And until next time, have a great week. Everyone say bye.
All right. Thank you for joining.
Bye.
Thank you, Bryan.
Thank you for listening to this Qsource podcast. If you ever find yourself needing Qsource to assist your facility, please reach out to us at qsource.org so our long-term care experts can help you through the process. If you want to hear more podcasts like this, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to your favorite audio. Just search for Qsource and you will find us. Thank you and have an amazing day.